From the Center for Telecommunication Services, the University of Texas at Austin. This is the Mexican-American Experience.
It's heard in the barrios across the Southwest, that colorful language which in the past was associated with criminal and streetwise Chicanos. Today it's more accepted, spoken by Chicano professionals as well as Barrio people. Yet Caló or Pachuco language remains a controversy, a language that Chicanos speak, but which is not an ideal for many. Upwardly mobile middle-class Chicanos who promote the speaking of standard Spanish continue to denigrate the Caló language. I'm Linda Fregoso. In this week's program, I'll take a look at Caló, when and where it's used, and how Chicanos view the language.
Yo te comprendo el inglés, también te hablo en castellano. Yo soy de la raza noble, yo soy Mexico-americano.
Language is as varied as the people who use it. The variations depend on several factors: geographic location, social class or ethnic origin, and oftentimes even age. English in this country has undergone a number of changes. Blacks have their own style of English, and the counterculture movement of the 60s added new dimensions to the vocabulary. Chicanos whose first language is Spanish have also broadened the scope of the English language, blending English and Spanish words. The result is what some have called Tex-Mex, and within Chicano speech is yet another variation, Caló.
Caló has been a part of the Chicano experience since, they dated back to 1930s or so, or the research has. And it's always been a very integral and vital part of the Chicano speech community that exists in barrios throughout the Southwest.
Leticia Galindo is a graduate anthropology student who is writing her thesis on Caló. Her research includes interviews with women across the Southwest who use the language.
It's definitely a very lively, very descriptive language. It's just a very dynamic language that is used to describe anything from clothing to marriage to drugs, to any aspect, I think, that is part of the Chicano barrio experience.
Commonly, Caló is associated with a group within Chicano culture, the Pachuco or Cholo, also known as zoot suiter and lowrider.
Caló is more the language now. It's classified as the language that is used by the Pachuco, and it's their own unique language. And people refer to it as Pachuco talk or Pachuco slang or whatever. But linguists and other social scientists have classified it as Caló.
In Spain, the term Caló was coined around the 1400s to describe the language of the gypsies or other marginal groups within Spanish society, like criminals and ruffians. And in Mexico, the term refers to the language of the lower class, the people in the barrios.
And it has filtered on into Mexico, and it's been known as Caló there in the barrios there. And has come down from people who have migrated into the Southwest, and they've settled in their own little barrios, and the language continues.
Perhaps the similarities between Mexican and Chicano Caló are best illustrated in this 1950s recording. The song is a conversation taking place in a jail between a Pachuco and his Mexican counterpart, the Tarzán.
En Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, frontera del Paso, Texas, se encontraron dos carnales encerrados tras la reja. El primero era Tarzán, de la capital venía. El segundo era Pachuco, de California salía. Tarzán le preguntó: ¿de dónde viene usted, carnal? Porque lo echaron al bote y el Pachuco le comienza a platicar. Pues sabe qué, yo apañé el rufo allá en Los Ve y me descolgué pa' Juariles, ¿sabe? Llegué de jarioso y me fui a un restaurante. Y me pregunta una ruca que si que quiero de rep. Y le digo yo, pues tráigame unas de lámina con unos de cemento. Pues escamó de abute la ruca y le llamó la jura, pues me entabicaron. Entonces dice el pachuco, ¿dónde viene usted, camita? Porque lo echaron al altar y dígame por qué se agüita. Yo vengo de bute lejos de la mera capirucha. No le tengo escamia a nadie, pues aquí traigo mi trucha. Pues verá lo que pasó, acabado de llegar. Póngame mucha atención y el tarzán le comienza a platicar. Nel, pues sabe, carnal, me fue a una cantina, ve. Y gusta de volada me sale una huichapa, me dice que si quiero tomar birria. Pues ahí en México la birria se come, no se toma, ve, pues es carne, hombre. Pero como yo no le hago al totacho, pues acá le dicen birria a la cerveza, Nel, pues yo no me daba cuenta, ve. Pues yo dije, esta me quiere vacilar y me puse muy locote y me garrucharon altares, ve. Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, frontera del Paso, Texas. Se quedaron los carnales encerrados con sus quejas.
The Caló language has several origins, and many Caló words are older Spanish ones, which are no longer used, except by the speakers of Caló.
It can come from Mexican Spanish, it can come from Spanish, Spain Spanish, it can come from the mixing, anglicized mixing of both English and Spanish, and it can come from some unknown sources. In fact, there was a study done by a woman who did exactly that. She took all the origins of words that she felt were part of the Caló vocabulary and traced them down as to the origins. And she found that some of the words were part of standard Spanish, contrary to what people might think. They were part of the Mexican language. And so Caló has a wide variety of sources. It comes from the mixing of language, English and Spanish, to just a whole new invention of words that cannot be traced anywhere.
Besides its communicative function, Caló serves to give its speakers a status within the barrio.
It's used for identity purposes, to sound real hip and sharp, and to be part of the in crowd as a way of acceptance into a particular group. There was one quote I remember from a Chicana in El Paso who said, if you're not a cholo or chola, you're nothing in your neighborhood. So it maintains a status position.
But this hasn't always been the case. Before the 1960s, Caló was frowned upon by those who stressed that Chicanos should speak, quote, correct or standard Spanish. However, the Chicano movement succeeded in reviving the language on a broader scale, and in giving Caló a positive status among Chicanos who spoke it. This song was recorded in the 1930s, and it expresses the conflict between a Caló speaker and a Mexican who speaks standard Spanish.
Ay, compadre, ¿qué es esa ensarta de disparates que me está diciendo?
¿Cómo disparates? O si le digo que me tardé, porque el aeromóvil empezó a mistear, y como ya pasando para acá, para México, en el camino no mira uno ni un sign, y la carretera no es de chiquete como allá, pues me ponché 2 veces, y tuve que caminar en rin, y con la llanta fleteada como 4 millas. A luego se me tapó el mofle, y al rato tuve un short.
A ver, explíquese más despacio, porque la verdad no le he entendido.
Pues ahí tiene que llegué a un garaje a mercar un poco de gasolín y el mecánico me dijo que la yonca que yo venía arriando misteaba tanto porque era de second hand y que el timer hacía un chorco en la pipa del gasolín.
Válgame, compadre, de veras que usted da lástima.
Y lo que más me arde es el trouble que tuve con mi cuera. No me quiso dar otra chanza y se me fue con otro vato. Se me puso muy heavy y le habló a la chota y me dijo: no te me pongas pesado y vale más que te pintes, vato, relaje, porque si no, te denuncio mojado.
Pero ¿cómo me da lástima?
Huerca desgraciada, nomás vido que se me empezaba a acabar el manil y le comenzó a dar caldo al guachemén y todo porque era blanco. Dijo que pa' acá ni un paso, que mejor se vaqueaba para atrás a tener un good time con el bolillo.
Bueno, ya está bueno de letanías. O se calla o me habla usted en español, porque desde que comenzó con su ensarta de disparates no le he entendido nada. ¿Qué rayos quiere decir con eso del gaselín, la chava, la huerca y la chanza? Explíquese usted como la gente, pues que ya se le olvidó su idioma.
Pues es que ancina se estila el uso de hablar en Texas.
Even today the stigma persists. As Leticia Galindo explains, not only have researchers perpetuated the idea that Caló is an inferior language, but some Caló speakers also view the language as something negative.
People have called Caló the snarl language, the criminal language, the drug-related language, the language of the low class. In fact, most of the research has classified it as that. So, in the sense of classifying a language in that fashion, not very many people are going to want to speak it. I had a couple of women who said, no, I think that Caló is very damaging in the sense that it's not good for the Chicano culture as a whole because it tends to make us look bad. And I think it's outside factors, society in general, mainstream society, the Chicanos who are more middle-class citizens.
Caló is historically seen as a male-dominated language. However, Leticia Galindo's research about Caló focuses on Chicanas. Galindo was hoping to refute previous literature about Chicana Caló users, which categorized them as prostitutes or gang members. And Galindo's research succeeded in showing that this just wasn't the case.
Most of the women, I interviewed 35 women. Out of those 35, most of them were college-educated, professional women with careers. Most of them feel very competent and very able to speak Caló. So it's not being viewed as a language that is geared only to the lower class, more negative, pejorative type of women, such as prostitutes or barmaids or whatever the research has classified them to be.
Why did the women begin to use it all of a sudden?
I think that women are emerging from the traditional passive type of females that we were supposed to be into a more vocal, better educated type of female, that they are realizing that they are capable of using this language. They can use this language. It's not a stigma, and it's not a negative thing to possess as part of their linguistic abilities, to where they are using it more.
Moreover, while some Chicanas continue to view the language as negative, others feel that Caló has cut through economic and social boundaries. Contrary to what one would believe, Chicanas who leave the barrio take Caló with them.
Most of the women that I interviewed felt that the language was definitely geared for your or used by your lower class people, socioeconomic status people who more than likely reside in the barrios or the projects. But also, they also felt that it was not necessarily being geared solely for that type of people. They felt that people from various social classes were now beginning to use it a lot more. And I definitely felt or wanted to ask the women I interviewed, here you are, you're a professional, you're an attorney, you're a social worker, you're a teacher. How do you feel about using Caló? Is it, below you or beneath you to use this particular language? A lot of them felt that, they did use it. They felt, I'm educated, and being educated means that I have a better self-concept about myself, and I shouldn't feel negative as to whether I use this language. In fact, I should feel more confident that I can use this language. And so some saw it in a very positive light. Other women felt that no, they couldn't use it due to their professions. The attorney that I interviewed said, no, I would not use it with my clients. Although my clients come in here speaking the language, I'm certainly not going to use the language with them. While social workers felt it was very important to do that, to use the language with their clients to establish a common ground, better rapport. So the responses varied in the sense that some women felt, yes, you can use it if you're a professional woman. You can use it on the job. You can use it with your boss at times. And it does not necessarily matter that you're a professional person. In fact, it should, be more of an enhancement type of situation. It, as one woman said, it sort of broadens your linguistic abilities to where you can speak to people on a professional basis, and yet you have the experience and are competent in speaking Caló, so that should make you a better, well-rounded person.
One of the women who inspired Leticia Galindo is Mary Jane Espinoza. She is an insurance claims specialist whose family spoke Caló while Espinoza was growing up.
They were probably the first words I spoke. Así me crié, desde chavala, my family used it. Todos around me. It's just, a language that I grew up with. Over the years, it's been kind of hard to completely forget it, and I grew up like that. I grew up around people that todo el tiempo lo usan, and they thought nothing of it. It was just, just a regular language, It's different, pero, todos lo usaban.
I asked Espinoza for examples of Caló words.
A shirt, I would call a lisa. Shoes, I would call cargos, or the dudes would call, their clothes like that.
Well, how would you say, let's go to the dance?
Well, no, I guess I would have to say, if I were around people that would always talk like that, dijera, vamos al chancleo.
And how would you call a car?
Una carrucha.
Woman and man and girlfriend and, parents and all those words.
A man would be un vato. A woman would be una ruca. Girlfriend would probably be mi chavala, because there's a difference between mi chavala and mi ruca. Mi chavala would probably be, my chavala, I would think, if a dude were referring to somebody as mi chavala, this is my girlfriend, But if he would say, this is my ruca, this is my woman, Your parents, your mom would be tu jefita, and your dad would be tu jefito.
What about, is there anything for children?
My girls, I call them mi chavalas. I refer to them as mi chavalas.
Other words Espinoza uses are chante for house, la jura for police, frajos for cigarettes, el mono for movies, rola for song or record. And among the verbs she uses are poner al alba for to be on guard or on the lookout, guachar for to watch, dar un aventón for to give someone a ride, and hacer pedo for to make trouble. Yet Espinoza doesn't speak Caló with everyone. She says people outside the barrio don't understand it, and some who do find Caló offensive. The major problem for Espinoza has been that her husband didn't like her speaking Caló.
I used to say something, and he used to say, what? And I'd have to rephrase it and not make it sound like that. It used to make me mad because it's something that I grew up with, and I had spoken it all my life. Now, this was my second husband. My first husband wasn't like that. He grew up the same place that I grew up. But when I remarried my second time, it was hard to try and not to speak that language because he could speak it, but he felt that he was a man and he could. But no, don't do it, Mary Jane. You're not supposed to.
Do you think, a lot of men are like that they don't like their wives or their girlfriends to use that language?
Yeah. Around them, sometimes you can speak the language, but when you're around other people, they prefer for you not to speak like that, even though they do.
Did your parents, ever tell you that it wasn't good or that you shouldn't use it with with certain people or things like that?
No, I was never told not to use the language. It was used all the time around the house, so I was never told not to use it. I was never told when to use it and when not to use it. That you learn on your own when you're growing up.
How do you learn that?
There's some people that you have to have a little bit more. Okay, they would, in order to keep the respect, if you wanted the respect from those people and you knew that those people don't speak the language, it would be best for you to maintain the respect. It would be best for you not to speak it. They think it's bad. It's not all that bad. It's not bad. As far as I'm concerned, it's not bad. You know, I mean, it's just something that a person grows up with, and it's just there. But some people don't understand that.
Where and when it is appropriate to use Caló intrigued Leticia Galindo when she compiled her research. Galindo found that the language lends itself only to certain contexts.
I asked these women where they felt comfortable with and who they felt comfortable with in speaking Caló. Most of the females felt very comfortable in using Caló in very informal situations, bailes, dances, bars, with close friends at parties, and even with family members in a joking situation. And some people say, well, you know, they would tell their mother, "Hey, ¿qué pasó, jefita?" You know, or things like that, but in a very joking manner. And so it was basically these types of settings. As far as people were concerned, most of the females felt that they could use Caló with close friends, both male and female. Some family members, depending, you know, again on the situation. The only problem that I can say that might have arisen was women were very hesitant to use it with people that did not understand, and they might find it offensive. There was still the element of finding the language offensive. There was definitely the element of respect with elders. In fact, one of the Pachucas that I interviewed said, "Yeah, man, I use it all the time with everybody." And then she, you know, her voice sort of died down, and she said, "But not with my father." And she said, "There's, you know, out of respect." So there's still the element of respect, you know, the cultural tradition of respect of your elders, and also there has to be a degree of intimacy, and they have to find it appropriate in order to use Caló.
As with all languages, the principal function of Caló is to communicate, and Caló is unique in that it captures certain experiences which themselves are unique to Chicanos living in the barrios. The primary users of Caló either grew up or live in particular social and economic conditions. Coupled with a cultural tradition and the influence of Spanish and English, Caló has emerged as the vehicle to express the experiences of Chicanos throughout the Southwest. Caló has regional variations, but more importantly, a speaker of Caló from a barrio in Texas could easily communicate with one in California. Leticia Galindo explains.
The language is definitely dynamic in the sense that it is constantly changing. It's constantly, new terms are coming into place just in order to some people have said to maintain its secretive type of nature, so to keep outsiders from knowing what is being said. So in that sense, the language is definitely changing. Yet I feel that a lot of the terms that are used are very common and are known throughout Los Angeles, Laredo, San Antonio, in the sense that if I were to go to East LA, that if I told someone, "Hey, ese vato, ¿dónde está tu chante?" that this person would relate to those terms, just as if I were to go to Laredo.
For Mary Jane Espinoza, Caló is a language which speaks of her roots, and a language she is certain will always remain.
I use it enough around here, around the girls, that, you know, they, even though they don't speak it to me or around here, they know what a word means when I'm talking to them in that language or something, or when somebody comes by and I'm outside talking to them or whatever. You know, the girls will hear and they'll know, you know, they know what I'm saying, you know. They won't speak it around me, but they will speak it around their friends. So it's a language that it'll never die out.
Mary Jane Espinoza, an insurance claims specialist who grew up speaking Caló. Also on the program was Leticia Galindo, an anthropology student who is studying the use of Caló or Barrio language among Chicanas in the Southwest. Technical producers are Kevin Meyer and Cliff Hargrove. For the Mexican-American Experience, I'm Linda Fregoso.
You've been listening to The Mexican-American Experience, a series of weekly programs focusing on the second largest minority in the United States, the Chicano. Comments are welcome, and copies of this program are available and may be purchased by writing The Mexican-American Experience, the University of Texas at Austin, 78712. This program is produced and distributed by the Center for Telecommunication Services at UT Austin and does not necessarily reflect the views of the University of Texas at Austin. This is the Longhorn Radio Network.